Every year, when Halloween night arrives, strange things seem to awaken things that shouldn't exist. Things that wait for darkness to fall to begin moving. Hello, little ravens. Welcome back to Dread Horror Channel. Tonight's stories were submitted by viewers who swear what happened to them was real. Ordinary people, ordinary lives, until something beyond the veil decided to pay a visit. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, keep the lights on, because these stories are darker than you can imagine. So, settle in, because the first story comes from a woman who claims to have spent Halloween night inside a house that shouldn't have been alive. Hello, I never thought I'd submit a story like this, but what happened to me last Halloween still keeps me up at night. I've never been much of a party fan or a costume fan, but I've always loved exploring old places. My town has an abandoned mansion on Maple Street, boarded up, forgotten, and surrounded by stories no one dares to verify. They say it breathes every Halloween night as if it had a pulse. Last year, I decided to find out for myself. It was cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your skin and makes every breath sting. The streets were empty, except for the sound of dry leaves scraping against the pavement in the wind. I walked up to the mansion's iron gates just before midnight. They were rusty, heavy, but when I touched them, they swung open by themselves. That should have been my first warning. I stepped inside, and the air changed instantly. The sounds of the night disappeared. No crickets, no wind, just a silence thick enough to press against my ears. The house loomed above me, its windows flickering with a faint yellow light. But there was no electricity. As I reached the front porch, I heard a faint creak, rhythmic, like breathing. The boards beneath my feet rose and fell slightly, as if the house itself were inhaling. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand. Old wood, I told myself. It's just settling in. Inside, the air smelled of dust, rust, and something damp like meat left out too long. The beam of my flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing portraits hanging crookedly on the walls. All the faces seemed to stare directly at me. Their eyes weren't painted. They seemed real. As I walked down the hallway, the door slammed shut behind me. The bang echoed like a gunshot. I turned, the door was gone. Not closed, gone. A solid wall of decaying wallpaper was in its place. Panic rose in my throat. I tried to retrace my steps, but the floor shifted beneath me, guiding me forward. The walls seemed to breathe faster now, a slow pulse that made my stomach churn. In the next room, I found something even worse. The furniture wasn't arranged normally. It was embedded in the floor. Chairs fused to the floorboards, tables fused to the walls, as if everything had become part of a single organism. I could hear a low, damp heartbeat coming from somewhere deep within the house. I screamed for help, but the sound didn't echo. It was swallowed. Then I felt a hand. It reached out from the wall, pale coal, with nails as black as ash. It brushed my neck before disappearing back into the wallpaper. I ran. The hallways twisted and stretched. It was terrifying, like a dream where everything seems real. The eyes of the portraits followed me, and I swear one of them smiled. Finally, I saw light at the end of a long hallway, the front door. I ran toward it, my heart pounding. But when I grabbed the doorknob, it wasn't metal. It pulsed beneath my fingers. It was skin. The house groaned, as if something was waking up. I forced the door open and staggered outside. The air was chilly again, and the house lights flickered one last time before going dark. When I turned around, the mansion looked abandoned again. No lights, no movement, just deathly silence. I ran all the way home. The next day, I returned with 2 friends. The gates had been locked with heavy chains. They said the house had been condemned for years. There was no way I could have gotten in. But when I showed them my camera, the footage faded. Only one frame remained. It was me, standing in the hallway. and behind me a shadow leaning close to my ear. Wow, that house on Maple Street has appeared in dozens of urban legends across the country, but none quite like this. Was it a hallucination? A dream? Or something ancient lurking behind its walls, waiting for someone foolish enough to enter? Some say the house breathes because it feeds not on people, but on fear. And every Halloween, it wakes up long enough to absorb a little more. Good thing you made it out. Personal note: if you find yourself near an old house glowing at midnight ... you might want to keep walking. Because some houses aren't built to be lived in, they're built to consume. Hi, I'm Jordan. I've gone back and forth about sending this, but every Halloween it comes back. The memories, the smell of the fields, and that sound. Like something dragging its feet through the dirt. It still haunts me. This happened in 2008, when I was 12. My family lived in a small rural town in Kansas, surrounded by endless fields of corn and pumpkins. Every October, there was this local festival, the Harvest of Shadows, where kids carved pumpkins and the adults drank cider by a bonfire. That year, for the first time, my dad let me and my cousin Jason walk through the fields alone at night. Stay close to the road, he said, and whatever you do, don't go near the old patch. Everyone in town knew about it, the abandoned pumpkin field a few miles north. The soil there was black as tar, and the pumpkins grew twisted, almost human-shaped. No one ever touched them, but kids are idiots. We wanted to prove we weren't scared. We left the lights of the festival behind, walking into the cornfield with flashlights and half-eaten candy apples. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of earth and something rotten. I remember Jason whispering, "Do you hear that?" At first, I thought it was the wind, but it wasn't. It was footsteps, slow, following us. We turned our lights toward the noise, but the beam only hit tall stalks swaying in the dark. We laughed nervously and kept walking until we saw the scarecrow. It stood at the edge of the pumpkin patch, huge, taller than any scarecrow had a right to be. Its head was a pumpkin, carved crudely with jagged eyes and a wide grin, but it wasn't lit from the inside. The face glowed faintly on its own, like embers beneath ash. Jason threw a rock at it, because that's what 12-year-olds do when they're scared. The scarecrow didn't move, but the pumpkins around it did. They seemed to shift slightly, their shapes bending toward us. Then we heard a deep creaking sound, like wood under pressure. The scarecrow's head turned. Not fast, just a slow, unnatural twist until its glowing eyes faced us completely. We froze. My heart was slamming against my ribs, so hard it hurt. Jason grabbed my arm, whispering, "Run," and we did. We ran through the corn, branches slicing our faces, the sound of something heavy following behind us. I looked back once, and I swear I saw it moving through the field, dragging one leg, the carved grin widening with each step. We made it back to the festival lights, gasping, shaking, covered in dirt. But when we looked back toward the field, nothing, just darkness. The adults laughed it off, called it a Halloween prank. My dad didn't believe a word. But the next morning, they found Jason's jacket on the fence near the old patch, sliced clean through, like something had burned it. A week later, a man went missing from the next town over. They found his truck near the same field, door open, engine still running. Inside, they found a single pumpkin, carved with his face. The sheriff plowed over the field that winter, said it was for safety, but no one ever planted there again. It's been years since then. I live 2 states away now, but every Halloween night, I find a small pumpkin on my doorstep, carved with that same jagged grin. And last year, it blinked, I swear. I've heard legends about the Pumpkin Man before. Some call him a spirit of vengeance. Others say he's what's left when the land itself turns against the living. Every version ends the same way. A deal broken, a promise forgotten. and something ancient rising from the soil to collect what's owed. If you ever find yourself near an old field on Halloween night and hear footsteps that dawn to match your own, just keep walking, because once he sees your face, the pumpkin man never forgets, and next Halloween, you might find your own carved smile waiting at the door. It's not a promise. Hello, John Hayden here. I've watched your channel for months, and I never thought I'd write something like this. But Halloween always brings it back. Maybe by sharing it, I'll finally sleep again. This happened 5 years ago when I was in college. I just moved into a small off-campus house with 2 friends, Mia and Trevor. The place was old, creaking floors, flickering lights, but rent was cheap, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions. At Halloween, Trevor wanted to throw a small party. Just a few people, he said. Some drinks, some music. Mia and I agreed. We decorated the living room with fake cobwebs, candles, and masks from a thrift store. One of them stood out, an old porcelain mask, cracked down the middle, painted with a smile that didn't look right. It gave me chills just looking at it. As the night went on, people came and went. The house was alive with laughter, the smell of pumpkin ale, and the hum of bad music. Around midnight, I went upstairs to grab more cups. That's when I noticed something. Someone was standing at the end of the hallway. He was wearing that cracked porcelain mask. At first, I thought it was Trevor playing a prank. I laughed and said, "Nice costume, man." But he didn't move, didn't even tilt his head, just stared. I turned away for a second, maybe 2, and when I looked back, he was gone. Back downstairs, I found Trevor dancing with Mia. I asked him if he'd gone upstairs. He shook his head, confused. Later, as the party wound down, people began leaving. Around 2 a.m., only the 3 of us remained. The house was quiet again. Then faintly, we heard a creak upstairs. Mia frowned. Did someone stay behind? Trevor grabbed a bat from beside the door, joking nervously. Time to evict our last guest. We went upstairs together. The hallway light flickered, and that same uneasy feeling washed over me. The cracked mask was lying on the floor outside my bedroom door. Trevor nudged it with his foot. Guess your friend dropped this. Then we heard it, breathing, slow, wet, coming from inside my room. Trevor pushed the door open. The window was open, curtains swaying, but no one was there. We searched the whole room, then the house, and found nothing. We tried to laugh it off, but none of us slept that night. 2 days later, Trevor went home for the weekend. He never came back. They found his car on a back road about 30 miles away, the driver's door wide open. Inside, on the passenger seat, was the cracked mask. The police said it was probably some psycho who'd broken into the house. But when they checked our security camera, they saw something impossible. At 3:07 a.m., about an hour after Trevor left, a figure walked up to our front door. He was tall, wearing dark clothes, and holding the mask in his hand. But here's the part that still haunts me. The footage glitched, froze for a second, then showed him standing behind the camera. The next frame went black. I moved out the same day. Mia, too. We don't talk anymore, but every Halloween, she sends a single text. Don't look out the window tonight. Last year, I broke that rule. There, across the street, under the lamppost, someone stood wearing that cracked porcelain mask. They didn't move, didn't wave, just stood there until the light flickered out. When it came back on, the street was empty. What do you think it could be? Help me if you can. The image of a mask hiding something or nothing behind it has always fascinated and terrified people. It is the perfect metaphor for Halloween. What happens when the costume stops being a disguise and becomes the face itself? I don't know what happened to Trevor, but if this story is true, someone or something might still be wearing that porcelain smile out there. If anyone who has been through this knows what to do, please share it in the comments. So before you open your door for trick-or-treaters, take one good look at their masks. If one of them doesn't move quite right, close the door. Fast. Hi, my name is Elena. I've never shared this before, but I need to. It's been a year since that night, and I still hear the knocking every time I try to sleep. I was house-sitting for my aunt last Halloween. She lived in a quiet cul-de-sac just outside Portland. Not exactly a spooky place, but isolated enough that you could hear every rustle outside. She'd gone to visit my uncle in the hospital, so it was just me, her cat, and a bowl of candy for the trick-or-treaters. The night started normally. Kids came and went. Pirates, witches, superheroes. By 9 p.m., the street was silent, and I turned off the porch light, signaling we were done. I curled up on the couch, scrolled through my phone, and half-watched some old horror movie on TV. That's when I heard a knock, slow, deliberate. Not at the front door, at the side window, the one by the kitchen sink. I froze. The curtains were half open, and in the reflection of the glass, I saw movement. At first, I thought it was a prank, but then I noticed the mask. It wasn't like any Halloween mask I'd seen. No bright colors or fake blood. It was pure white, with an eerie, almost handmade look. The eyes were too wide, and the mouth was stretched in a smile that seemed painted on with trembling hands. I remember whispering, "Not funny," my voice barely audible. But the figure outside didn't move away. It just tilted its head, slowly as if listening. I turned off the kitchen light, hoping to make myself invisible. That's when I realized something worse. The reflection wasn't facing me. The mask was pressed against the glass. From the inside, I dropped my phone. When I looked again, the mask was gone. I backed away, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was a trick of the light. But then came the sound of footsteps above me. Faint, careful, deliberate. Someone was walking in the attic. I called my aunt. No answer. I called the police. They said a patrol was on its way. 10 minutes never felt so long. I could hear movement, creaking from the ceiling, a soft drag of something heavy. Then a whisper, barely audible. "Do you like my smile?" I screamed. The cat darted under the couch. I grabbed the nearest thing, a fireplace poker, and backed toward the front door. But before I reached it, the doorknob turned, slowly. The door creaked open just an inch, and through the gap, I saw that same mask, illuminated by the porch light. This time, it wasn't smiling. The paint around the mouth looked smeared, like it had been licked away. I ran to the kitchen, slammed the back door shut, and waited. When the police finally arrived, the house was empty. No footprints, no sign of forced entry. The only thing they found was a white mask lying in the middle of the living room floor, and my reflection, in its glossy surface, looked like it was smiling, even though I wasn't. I moved out of state last month. I still don't go near mirrors at night, because sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I swear I see that same smile in the dark. I hope you liked it. Even though I don't like her at all, I had to tell you. Bye. Some stories stay with you because they feel too personal, like they could happen to anyone. Elena's story reminds us that evil doesn't always break down doors or roar in your face. Sometimes it just waits, wearing a smile it borrowed from yours. If you've ever experienced something strange on Halloween night, something you still can't explain, send it to me. I'll be reading more stories like this all month, because the shadows get louder this time of year. Up next, another tale from a night when the masks didn't come off. Hello people, I'm Kyle, from Michigan. I don't know if this story fits your channel, but something happened on Halloween 2 years ago that still doesn't make sense. My neighbors think I made it up, but my sister saw it too, and she doesn't talk about that night anymore. I was 17 at the time, living in a small town in Indiana. Halloween was a big deal there. Costume parades, haunted hayrides, the whole thing. My friends and I decided to spend the evening driving around the outskirts, visiting the old farm roads where the local legends were born. There was one in particular, a story about the jack-o'-lantern man. People said he'd once been a farmer who lost his family in a fire. After that, he carved a pumpkin every year and placed a candle inside, hoping their spirits would find their way home. But one year, something else came instead. They said he went mad, and the next morning, the townsfolk found him in the field, his head replaced by a jack-o'-lantern, still burning from the inside. Just a story, right? So of course, we went looking for it. Around 11 p.m., we drove out to Briar Hollow Road, a stretch of farmland that hadn't been used in years. The moon was huge, orange, the kind that looks like it's watching you. I was with my sister, Lila, and 2 friends. We parked near the broken gate and walked into the field, flashlights slicing through the mist. About 100 yards in, we found a scarecrow, or what looked like one. It wore an old plaid shirt, jeans, and a pumpkin for a head, except this pumpkin wasn't carved. It was smooth, unmarked, and yet we could hear something faint inside it, like the sound of breathing. "Let's go," my sister whispered. She's never been the superstitious type, but that night, her voice shook. My friend Jamie, always the joker, reached out and tapped the pumpkin with his flashlight. The sound it made wasn't hollow. It was wet. And then it moved. The pumpkin head turned slow and heavy until it was facing us. The thing's arms dropped from the crossbeam of the post, and it stepped down, the earth crunching under its boots. The candlelight, where had that come from, began to glow through cracks in the pumpkin's skin, outlining 2 eyes and a jagged, crooked mouth. Jamie screamed first. I froze. My flashlight flickered, and in that flash, I saw what I'll never forget. The pumpkin wasn't carved. The light was coming from inside the man's chest. He started walking toward us, each step deliberate, dragging something in his hand, a rusted lantern, its flame guttering. Leila grabbed my arm. We turned and ran through the field, branches snapping, the light bouncing behind us like it was chasing our shadows. When we reached the truck, the door handle was cold as ice. I fumbled with the keys, and in the reflection of the side mirror, I saw him, standing just at the edge of the road. His pumpkin head tilted slightly, watching. We sped off, tires kicking gravel. For a moment, I thought we'd lost him. Then we passed the old grain silo, and there he was again, standing on the other side of the road like he'd simply appeared there. The next morning, we went back. The field looked normal. No footprints, no scarecrow, nothing. But on the windshield of my truck was a single pumpkin seed, still warm, as if it had just been taken from the fire. Leila refuses to talk about it. Halloween night now makes her sick to her stomach. As for me, I still drive that road sometimes just to see. And every year, a few days before Halloween, a lone jack-o'-lantern appears at the edge of the field. It's never lit, but if you get close enough, you can smell smoke inside it. Sometimes I have strange dreams, and in the end, he always appears, even if in the background. There's something about Halloween that seems to thin the line between memory and nightmare. Kyle's story, if you can even call it that, sounds like a warning to anyone chasing urban legends for fun. Some of them don't stay legends for long. If you've ever gone looking for a scare and found something that followed you home, share your story. These tales remind us that not every pumpkin on the porch is empty, and sometimes the light inside isn't from a candle at all. Tonight's stories gave me chills. From the smiling mask to the jack-o'-lantern man, Halloween seems to wake up the darkest corners of our world, and maybe of ourselves. If these tales sent shivers down your spine, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below telling me which story haunted you most. And don't go anywhere. On the final screen, there are 2 more terrifying videos waiting for you. Keep the lights on And remember, sometimes the scariest masks are the ones we don't recognize. I hope I can sleep tonight, but it won't be easy. See you in the next video.